Hey, so I was in a Mahalia Jackson mood, and so I was listening to the playlist that Spotify put together for her, and which I really appreciate. It's a good playlist, and she is singing one of the hymns she sings is "I'd Rather Have Jesus," and it just kind of hit me as I was listening to it in a way that it hadn't before, and I think a lot of that has to do with the formation process that I've been in over a significant amount of time, but like really had my foot on the gas of it. Probably the last, I don't know, 2 years maybe. And currently being formed in groups that have people represented from all walks of life and dimensions of diversity, and those groups being led specifically by Dr. Drew Hart and by Jared McKenna. Many others have influenced me as well. They're not the only ones, but that is so significant. And I've thought about that and the things that I've learned, the stories and narratives that I've heard that I probably wouldn't have heard anywhere else, and how that has changed the way that I listen to things and hear things. And so the lyrics of this hymn, I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather have him than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or land. I'd rather be led by his nail-scarred hand. When she sang the line, I'd rather be led by his nail-scarred hand, it really, like, what that means really hit me at a deeper level than it ever did. Because I feel like generally, I would like to be led by Jesus instead of, in a broad brush, stroke kind of way, instead of being led by the things of this world that are passing away. Like those very general statements. And I feel like it's so much more specific and that the focus is like you are proclaiming that your desire is to follow a savior who had nails in his hands, who was essentially lynched by the state, and that the example of truth telling, of peacemaking, of neighbor ethic, of all being welcome at the table, of liberation, that what Jesus exemplified is more important than the power, the privilege, the prestige, the opportunities. And that if following Jesus means that there is this experience where we're led into places that we would not go ourselves. We wouldn't choose those places, but Jesus says this is the way to go. And it's a way that includes suffering. And it's a way where you're going to feel that disconnect from the flow of the world, that the world is flowing in a certain way and saying, this is what's good. This is what's right. The world is saying, this is what peace is. This is, when Jesus came to earth, Rome had said that we are, called Pax Romana. This is the time of Roman peace, but it was being established through death dealing, violence, and militarism, fear mongering, and they called that peace. But Jesus said, no, that's actually not the way to peace. That's not the way to liberation. That's not the way. It's not violent, controlling, death dealing. It's not fear. It's not othering. It's not self-preservation at the cost of someone else's livelihood or life. It's not holding on to ideas or values that only lift you up and only speak into your context, but completely disregard your neighbor's context. That could be totally different than yours and is still valid. But because it's different, you say, oh, no, That's no good. That's not it. That's not how we do things. You're wrong and I'm right. Jesus says, let's look at this a little differently. And in looking at it differently, in publicly looking at it differently for 3 years, Jesus ends up nailed on a cross. And in this song, listed against, there's this list of things to which this line comes against. I don't want the wealth. I don't want the positions. I don't want the line after that says to be a king of a vast domain. I don't want if I have to have platforms instead of Jesus, like if I have to pick one, I'm not picking the platform. I'm going to pick Jesus. And the line right after that says, or be held in sin's dread sway. And again, to me, this speaks to this list of things that is in stark contrast to who Jesus is and how Jesus leads us. These things are these are the sinful ways that we are held in places of deception and in bondage. And Jesus in that song is represented as being the one that frees us through not violence, but through something that a lot of us don't really want to admit, which is through pain. And yes, Jesus was victorious, but also Jesus actually experienced that pain. And often we're led into places where we're like, oh, I don't want to go there. Is there another way around? Is there a detour? And Jesus says there's not. But I have something that is so life-giving, and this is the way to get to it. Here's how we travel down that road. And I just pictured Jesus grabbing us by our hands with the scars and saying, I've traveled it before and I'm going to go with you. And there's going to be others with you too. But this is the way. So if you have not listened to any Mahalia Jackson, I think you should. And if you are unfamiliar with I'd Rather Have Jesus, then listen to that too. And I will talk to y'all soon.